Hello.
I don't know if but let's introduce each other, shall we?
Uh,
This is the ghostly presence of your friend formerly known as Bonnie Graves.
and I'm Dan Fredman. All over the place. I ended the year in Dallas,
Yeah,
left just in time, dodged that bullet. Um,
crazy.
was in Orange County for a little while, and now in San Luis Obispo. Back to my roots.
Back to your roots. And I am
Yeah.
still here in the land of Los Angeles, where I've been for a long time. Dan, I'm not sure who in our audience knows. Well, actually, I think you and I were connected before World of Pinot Noir, but I think you and I are two of the elder statesmen when it comes to being on the sommelier team.
Yeah.
How many years have you done?
No, bunch.
Yeah.
I think I started at like the fourth or fifth one, so I don't know how many there've been. Kind of lost track, but
Year 21.
yeah, something like that. So probably 15, 16 years. I think Chris Shackelford's been up there almost as long as we have.
Yeah.
But that institutional memory is pretty cool. I remember when it first was getting started, and I got to go as an attendee rather than working, and it was always really educational, really interesting, and got to taste a whole lot of wine.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was you that invited me or maybe it was Chris Shack or whomever back in the day, but it was right when I had been working at Spago in Beverly Hills, and it was kind of fun. I'm like, wow, if I'm going to take a weekend off and not really get paid to go and be a sommelier, there better be some good grape juice to make it worthwhile. And there really was. I mean, this is back when it was at Shell Beach, when we used to do it at the cliff, out on the cliffs there, which was beautiful in those early days. But I also remember how quickly the event grew, and we kind of maxed our capacity. There was such interest in having so many wineries participate that we quickly outgrew our home base there, and then ended up moving a little further south down to Santa Barbara.
Yeah, it was also interesting because when it started out, it was really kind of pretty good focus on what was happening in the Central Coast. All the Pinot producers from there.
Wow, very notably.
Be, some Burgundy and some people, one or two people from Oregon, and you get some Sonoma Coast folks coming down early and supporting. But it really grew in scope, and sort of equally. What I find interesting is that it's equally of interest to the trade and to consumers.
Very unique. To your point about how it's grown as a brand and not just as an event, I can remember very keenly even before this, being a sommelier in New York and looking at my Hugh Johnson wine atlas map, the Hugh Johnson map, and saying, Arroyo Seco, Arroyo Grande. Which one is which?
There are similarities.
I remember early on tasting Rosemary's and tasting Tally Pinot and going like, what? Where is this AG place? What? Where's Arroyo Grande? Is that near Sonoma? Where is that?
I think it's interesting with this mixed case is it sort of reflects that expanse, including the Tally wine, which Brian was one of the founders, if not the founder, of WOPN. But you have wine from Germany and Australia and places that you sort of back, even 10 years ago, you knew that they made Pinot Noir down there, but it wasn't quite as well known and wasn't as important on the scene.
I think the WOPN board of directors can either thank me or not thank me, but I believe it was I that brought in David Strada back in the day saying, we should bring some Kiwi winemakers over for World of Pinot Noir. If we're really going to be global, then let's really include some of our further Appalachian friends. And certainly that was a big deal to have a lot of the New Zealand winemakers come over. And actually, Dan, tell us a little bit, because I think you still rep or connected to the brand. So when the Somm team and I were putting this box together, we really wanted to reflect that sort of global evolution of World of Pinot Noir as an event and as a brand, including lesser known Australian appellations. So tell us a little bit about cool climate Australian Pinot Noir, not just Shiraz.
Well, Levantine Hill is the 2016 Pinot Noir from the Yarra Valley is part of this case. And the Yarra Valley, I mean, I first heard about them in the late 80s, I guess, maybe early 90s. There were Coldstream Hills, which was James Halliday's winery.
Can you position so they know where Yarra Valley is?
This is about an hour north of Melbourne.
Melbourne, right.
So it's cool climate. Yeah, sort of like Sonoma in that respect. Nice elevation there. You've got fog gets in there, cooler, longer hang time for the vines, for the grapes. And Pinot Noir has been like Pinot Noir and Chardonnay have been their go-tos. There have been people doing Syrah and Bordeaux varieties, and global warming, you're starting to see more Tempranillo, Grenache, things like that, where wineries are planning to see what's going to be good for the next, 20, 30, 40 years out there. So Levantine Hill is they're high up on the hill, and they've got their paddock wines, which are sort of the reserves, and they've got the regular estate. Everything's grown on the property. Winemaker's a guy named Paul Bridgman, and Paul is from the Yarra Valley. I'd say he's probably pushing 50 at this point, maybe a little more. So he has a lot of experience. He's done 20 plus vintages in the Yarra. He's also worked for Jean-Louis Chave, so he's got a little bit of experience with with Syrah. And he also worked in Washington State, and he was there at the right time where he was able to spend his weekends in Seattle playing in grunge bands. So he's got quite the background.
Sure.
He, after working in the area, he wound up taking over at Yarra Yering when Dr. Bailey Carotis passed away.
I didn't know that. That's a cool connection.
Yeah, and Yarra Yering is like, it's very difficult to find. It's really expensive when you find it. The wines age really well.
Yeah, very little.
And so the thing with Levantine is they just basically want to make wine that's going to age a long time. It's going to reflect what Yarra is capable of. They're not going for, to please the critics for big scores. They want to get wines that are really beautifully made, that when you taste them, you want to drink more of them. And
yeah, well, I think if we're talking stylistically, and that was, again, we wanted to have sort of appellation diversity, but also have stylistic diversity. So, when we're talking about Pinot Noir, if we want to talk about the world of Pinot Noir, we want to talk about the world of extraction. And I think, without being too geeky about it, one of the things that's so interesting with Pinot is, sure, a grape is a grape, a clone is a clone, and how do we get this incredible spectrum of experiences? And for me, very often that comes down to extraction, a whole cluster, decisions that a winemaker is making in the winery. But of course, all of that originates in the vineyard and in the climate, and how much acid you're able to preserve before you pick, and all that kind of thing. So I think just to kind of tie that back in, definitely when we're talking about Yarra Valley, we're talking about high acid, beautiful, lacy kind. Dan was kind enough to send me a bottle. I opened it just the other day. Fantastic wine, like so over delivers. Beautiful.
It has a savory character to it.
Raspberry leaf, just beautiful, dare I say, Burgundian wine, right? Elegant Burgundian.
Oh, go ahead.
Coming out of Australia, right? So, that's one thing that I think is cool. For our Burgundy enthusiasts, WOPN is known for really being big supporters of Burgundy, and we always do our Burgundy seminar. We do have, just to make sure we touch on that, we do have some actual Burgundy in our box, which we're excited about. And we talked a little bit about this already. One of the wines we're doing is a blend of Premier Cru Vineyards from our friend Patrick Will, who's also a super longtime supporter, and he has provided with some Domaine Chanson Burgundy, and we're doing the 2018 Bon Bastion, which is super, super beautiful wine. So, we have this sort of lesser known appellation in Australia, but then we also have like really pedigreed Burgundy that we're excited to kind of showcase. So stylistically, these wines have a lot in common, but geographically, they have nothing in common.
Well, that's the thing about this, which I found interesting with the combination of those two wines, because here's the Levantine Hill is from one particular source, from a couple different blocks. But you've got the Chanson is from a number of different vineyards, sort of all in the same, it's in the same general area, but different farming regimens. Yeah, and stylistically, it comes together sort of as the house style of Chanson.
Yeah, I think so as well. So we've kind of got that in terms of a stylistic category. We also want to talk about our friends to the north. I know Dan and I both have also participated in IPNC, over the years. So many acronyms, International Pinot Noir Celebration, that our friends up in McMinnville host every year. And that was another real goal, at least of mine personally as a sommelier, and then later helping to plan some of the WOPN stuff, is to get our Oregon friends dialed in, right? It's everybody wins. If we're really going to have, a celebration or a festival that encompasses all major regions, we can't just be California specific. So even though our roots are very much in the Central Coast, and we're grateful for, all of the Appalachian support we've had locally, we're very excited that we're including some Oregon in our box this year. And what's the vintage we decided to go with? Sorry, I'm just double checking. Four Graces, 2015, and that is their Doe Ridge Estate. So that's Yamhill Carlton. And that's another thing that's been really interesting over the course of WOPN's history, 21 years now, the explosion of AVAs in Oregon, right? So I'm trying to think back 21 years ago in the Irie and David Lett in that era.
You'd have Willamette Valley.
Yeah, exactly. I think everything was just labeled Willamette Valley. So that's been kind of interesting, parallel journey, what's happened up in the Oregon wine industry, specifically with Pinot in the north and the Willamette, and how they've gradually broken down so much of their Pinot Noir production into sub-appellations that really do reflect this whole idea of terroir, of place speaking. So we're excited about that. I mean, Yamhill tends to produce wines that are a little more powerful, a little more concentrated, definitely with some ripeness there. So I think stylistically, that's kind of a nice counterpoint.
I really like the Carlton wines in general. The things coming from it. It's this really small town. You walk in, couple of roads in and out, and beautiful country. But if you're going touring, once we're able to do that, it's a really good place to sort of set up. Because you have
winemaker studio is fantastic. Yeah,
small guys, and you visit DDO and Stoller and all those folks.
Correct. Yeah, Dan and I are both big fans of Domaine Drouhin, which is in and of it. We don't have DDO in the box this year. Sorry, David Millman. But one of the things that's fun about that is talk about really emphasizing the connection between New World and Old World Pinot in a very concrete way and place called Domaine Drouhin. The French recognize good soil when they see it. So that's always been kind of fun as well, is that, and we've had their support as friends of ours over the years as well. So yeah, we're excited to have a Willamette wine. We really haven't talked, and we talked a little bit about Tally. We haven't talked too much. One of my favorite wines, so this is funny. Sometimes we think we know, at least if we're like geeky sommeliers, we think we know about wine, right? Oh, I know about wine. And I remember tasting the Maggie Hawk wines at Family Winemakers in Pasadena. Remember that big event? It was a big trade tasting here in California. And I knew nothing about the wine, but I remember thinking like, Jesus, this is great Pinot. Who's this Maggie?
I've never had it.
One of my really good friends was working on the brand with Jackson Family. And I had no idea. I thought that was kind of funny because it brings into play kind of minis and majors, right? So Jackson Family has been a big supporter of World of Pinot Noir, and really is the biggest of the mini majors, right? So it's still family owned. A lot of brand. I'm trying to think of the right word. Dan, you help me out. You're the publicist, but more, like they really, when they buy wine or buy wineries or buy brands, they have such a great respect for sort of the origin of that. So go ahead.
I've found that they tend to keep in place the people who brung them to the dance. So and they don't look at it as a brand. They look at it as another opportunity, maybe to have another slot on the shelf. But stylistically, it fits in with the other wines that they have in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's been really good. There's been some winemakers have taken off after a while, but they've always been replaced by people who understand what the whole deal was in the first place.
Yeah, well, I think in terms of loyalty to a sort of specific or just respect for a specific terroir, when you're talking Anderson Valley is quite different than Sonoma, where they've kind of
their own language.
Correct. Yes, they speak Mendocino up there.
Bootling, I think.
Yeah. So I think they don't make, I'm trying to think what their total production is. I mean, pretty tiny. They don't make very much wine. So we're really, really pleased that they were kind enough to share some of that amazing Maggie Hawk Pinot with us. On that topic, actually, Chris and I and some of the other somms went back and forth about this, but we're also very excited to have some Brewer Clifton in our box this year. Here's another funny story. I remember working as a sommelier in New York, and these two really cute guys from California were at the bar. This is at Jean Georges in New York, and they were very young. And I will say that Greg Brewer had more hair at the time. Sorry, Greg.
Did you card them? Were they that young?
They had made bubbles. It was that year they made them early on. This is like 2000, 2001 or something. And I just remember the same kind of feeling, like, you know, having my roots in my career began in New York before moving out to California. I remember tasting these bubbles and meeting these guys, these Brewer and Clifton, these two friends that were making wine in Santa Barbara, and talk about a brand evolution. That's been really fun. I mean, obviously there have been some transitions pivotally in that brand, including Jackson family buying Brewer Clifton. So, you know, similarly, I think that JFW's done a really great job of kind of letting Greg continue to do his thing. And so I think he was, I think I'm right that he was winemaker of the year this year or something.
Wine enthusiast? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was wine enthusiast. Anyway, you know, so the real cute guy at the bar continued to become very respected winemaker. And of course, the Brewer Clifton wines have their own huge following. You know, definitely people know them as know the wines as a brand, and I think really appreciate. I think Machado. Let me check. I think that's
they're one of the wines that sort of helps define what Central Coast wines are supposed to taste like. One of the benchmarks.
Yeah, so it is the Machado, and it's 2016 in the box. So that'll be fun because that's got a little bit of age on it. And by the way, back to the Four Graces, that Yamhill Carlton wine, that's a 2015. So that's you know, we talk about sort of winemaking choices when it comes to extraction, when it comes to whole cluster, whatever, fermentation choices. But it's also really interesting in a box like this, as somms, like we're not controlling for vintage, right? We're trying to actually also put some things with a little bit of age. There's some newer releases as well. Actually, you know, we didn't talk about, look at this, 2013 Trombetta.
Yeah.
So that's our oldest wine in terms of age in the box. Tell us a little bit about that wine, because we didn't really talk too much about, we touched on Sonoma briefly, but this is a great example of Sonoma and also some age.
Well, this is also Petaluma Gap AVA, which is only a couple years old.
Yeah, like 2 years.
Gap Crown, which is arguably the best vineyard in the region. Ricky Trombetta Stancliffe, who the owner, she and her daughter Erica Stancliffe. Erica works with a couple other wineries, including Cirque and Fendler, I believe. And she is a really great winemaker, but her mother Ricky was working with Paul. Blank on his name. Anyhow, doing really wonderful wines, learned what to do with them there, and has now moved on and is making wines totally in her own style. And it's really interesting what she's doing with the Trombetta wines. They've got a presence to them. Great. Oh, it's Paul Hobbs. Thank you, Chris. So very much really beautiful wines, great fruit. It's up front, but there's a softness to them, an approachability. And 2013 was just a really nice vintage for them. And it's drinking well now. Gives you an idea of the way that the Pinot Noir can evolve when it goes in with really full flavors, really broad, complex, range of savory to sweet, and how age sort of rounds things off and brings them all together. It turns into something that it wasn't when it first started. Yeah. This is why we cellar wine.
Yeah.
We rationalize some of it.
Our cellar selection.
Yeah.
So we've touched a little bit on, I think we've had a chance over these Facebook Lives, and for those of us that are good at Instagram Live, some of those, I think we have a really good sense of what's in the box. One thing I wanted to touch on just quickly for anybody who's out there is our added value, which is that we're doing seminars around these wines. So we're really excited. Master Sommelier David Glancy is going to be helping us out with some of these, in addition to some members of the sommelier team and some winemakers who hopefully will be able to join us. So one of the fun things about the box, and I think I don't think we have that much left. I think I have to check with Stacey and see how many boxes are left.
10 boxes left, maybe?
Yeah. So that is a value add for people that are interested in purchasing the box, where you get an opportunity to jump on with these, if you want to, and open up the wines and kind of experience them collaboratively. So they're going to be taking place on 4 Wednesdays in March. And we tried to group them together thematically a little bit, at least in ways that Soms think, okay, well, these would be interesting to taste side by side. For those that have a Coravan, you might want to use it. I don't know how quickly you can drink 3 good bottles. But we're going to be kicking things off with our first seminar on Wednesday, March 3rd, which is just around the corner. And that's going to be exploring what we talked about just earlier, this sort of Burgundy West Coast connection and what that really means. So we're hopeful that, and that will be led by David Glancy, a fantastic, with San Francisco Wine School. If people don't know David, he's really a great fellow. He's come and done some seminars for us at Bacara in the past. And then in the second seminar, which is Wednesday, March 10th, we're going to be featuring the 4 Graces that we just spoke of from up in Oregon, the Levantine Hill, that Dan spoke from Yarra Valley, and then the Trombetta. So those we just talked about. Those would be really interesting that on that second seminar, those 3 wines together on the topic.
Similarities and the differences.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Really interesting.
Really good. I should have saved my sample bottle. I already drank that. Third Wednesday, March 17th, in true St. Patrick's Day spirit, we will be tasting Pinot Noir. And we have the Eden Rift. Tally, hopefully EJ, our friend Eric Johnson, who works with Brian over at Tally, will be able to join us. And Greg Brewer, who we mentioned, our friend from Brewer Clifton. And that'll be really fun to see those 3 wines side by side if we're talking about appellation distinctions in California. That's AG, Arroyo Grande, Cienega Valley, and the Santa Rita Hills. So we've got 3 well-known, of the 3, of course, 1 lesser known than the other 2. But that'll be a fun sort of trio of California regions. And then we'll be wrapping it up on March 24th with, and this is the one that I'm excited about because I love these wines. We'll have 3 old world, quote unquote, examples of Pinot, and those will be the Vincent Leddy Vieille Vigne, and that's a Savigny Le Bon. That wine has a nickname, by the way. We explored that, Chris and I. I think I speak more French than Czech. Anyway, and then the really tasty, we do have some Blanc de Noir champagne that we're excited to include, which is the Gonnet Medevie Premier Cru Champagne. That'll be in the box. We saved that for the 4th seminar. And then also the Spat Burgunder from Julia Bertram. So that is our German title. And if you want to talk about global warming, there's 2 great examples of this, right? One of them is German Pinot Noir, and the other is sparkling wine from Sussex. Right?
And both are really interesting subjects to dig into because we're finally able to get those wines over here, and they're also finally able to get them ripe every year. Sadly, thanks to global warming, there's consistency in them, and the winemakers have, for the most part, have studied in places where they specialize in Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, and worked with some of the legendary Burgundian and some of the California and Oregon producers, and they go back to Sussex or to Germany, and they're making some really great stuff.
Yeah. In full disclosure, Dan helped a great seminar for an event that I put together called Effervescence in Los Angeles. And I remember we had some really exceptional sparkling wines from the UK. That would be fun to do, a Pinot Noir all sparkling case, right? How fun would that be? We could put that together really well.
So for next year.
For next year, maybe. Yeah.
That's one of the things about World of Pinot Noir in the past is that there have always been extra seminars or opportunities to taste things like Pinot Blanc, like sparkling wines made from Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, tasted some of those, and Chardonnay sneaks its way in too. It's kind of in the same family and brought in. So
often under the table, delicious Chardonnay can occasionally be found.
Yeah.
Anyway, I saw somebody, and I don't know if Lacey or someone can answer that, but when the boxes should expect to be arrived, you'll get a shipping manifest when they go out. And
around the 24th.
Yeah, we're going to track them up. So, we'll make sure that everybody who has ordered them, we were waiting to get the Burgundy off the boat, quite literally. The Burgundy has made it. So now we need to physically put the Burgundy into the box, but it is here. So that's exciting. And I don't know if there are any other questions out there, but wines will be shipping next week. And we're excited about it. This is a weird time for people that work in all aspects of the wine industry, but especially for wine events like World of Pinot Noir. I mean, a lot of what we do that makes it fun is coming together So we're hopeful that this idea of sharing a box of wine collaboratively is a way of coming together. This maybe, I don't know if the food will be as good at my house as it is at Bakar.
Inspiration to try some new recipes.
Yeah, maybe so. That's another thing we could think about doing. There's been some talk of maybe putting together a second box later this year. If people are interested, it's a lot of fun for the sommelier team to put it together, and there's lots of great Pinot out there. Might be fun to explore connecting some chefs and some of our restaurant partners that we've worked with at Bakar and other places over the years. It might be fun to include. I have a friend in San Francisco who's doing that with great success, these meal kits,
Haley.
And yeah. So anyway, but until we can get together in person, we'll have to do the best we can sharing Pinot Noir virtually. So we're excited about World of Pinot Noir Wine Month for March. 4 seminars coming. A couple boxes left to sell if somebody has a friend or a colleague that might appreciate. And we keep trying to pitch this, but it's way underpriced. For those of us that work in the business, they're like, this is like may not seem like a bargain, but it really is what the actual cost of this case should be. So that was another thing we wanted to extend to our World of Pinot Noir family and friends, is an opportunity to really enjoy these wines at a pretty deep discount. So we're excited to pass that along to our World of Pinot Noir colleagues and friends.
All really wanted to be involved in this, so instead of providing their basic cuvées, you tended to get a lot of wines with age and things from their cellars.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty special box. We're excited with how it turned out. So looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
And thank you, Solterra, for setting this up for us. And if there's any questions on shipping or anything, we'll make sure we get that answered for you and get these boxes out next week.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye, everybody.